keep hearing people say Westham.
Yeah.
When I see it, I say Wesham.
A lot of people
Yeah,
do, yeah. I think from my perspective, all the people who lived there would call it. I got appointed in the May,
Yeah.
but I started in the September. And then within 6 months,
Yeah.
the world changed. A lot of people in your position could have gone halves. So I appreciated being here.
Welcome to the first episode of the Lancashire Smiles podcast, where we are going to be talking to some exciting and interesting guests who are based in the Fylde in Lancashire. And today we've got a really special guest who is based within Kirkham, and we're going to be hearing a lot about some of the impactful things that are happening within our local area, within the community. So welcome, my name is Dr. Arnold, and today we have Pastor Dan Belshaw with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Good
so
to
this
be
is a
here.
special one. You are officially starting us off. How would you introduce yourself to the person on the street? You know, you meet somebody in public. How would you introduce yourself? What would you say about yourself and who you are?
Well, I probably would say that I'm Dan,
Yeah.
married to Holly, and lived here since I was 7 years old,
Yeah.
and have the huge privilege of leading a church called Light Church
Yeah.
in just outside Kirkham. We're
Yeah.
technically in Westham, but,
All right.
but we're in the area, we're close. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, as a pastor of a church, you must get to hear a lot of stories, meet a lot of people. Do you find that it can become a bit much? You know, you're meeting people, you know, at the church, and then within the community, you're bumping into these people as well. Do you feel like you ever switch off? You know, what's that like?
I feel like in a job like this, you really have to be in it because you love people and because you know you want the best for people. So yeah, I mean, like every job, there's lines that you could, you know, or boundaries you got to put in place so it's not too much. But on the whole, no, I love bumping into people, and and we've got a great team as well. So you know, I don't want it all to sound like it's all on my shoulders, but I have the huge privilege of working with a great team and real beautiful community within the church and around us. So yeah.
So what actually brought you to the area? So you said you've been here since you were 7. What brought you?
Yeah, so parents moved to the area. So as a child, you know, you go where your parents go.
Yeah.
And I moved in primary school, and then almost feel like I've always been here. Really, you know, we've lived in a few different places, but this feels like home.
So primary school onwards.
Primary
you
school,
did that here.
I think.
So where did you go? Yeah, tell us about where you went.
My primary school,
Yeah.
I went to Westham C of E school.
Yeah.
So top of Westham.
Okay, so I keep hearing people say Westham.
Yeah.
When I see it, I say Wesham.
A lot of people do.
Is that just how you're supposed to pronounce it? Like, is that like an in thing? If you're from the area,
I guess it depends. Maybe this will be the contention of the local area, but I think from my perspective, all the people who lived there would call it Westham.
Yeah.
And when people would come from outside, they would typically pronounce it Wesham.
Yeah.
I guess it depends who you ask. I've always called it Westham.
Yeah. So silent H. I'll start saying that, Westham.
Well, I kind of think about it like Kirkham
Yeah.
and like West Ham. That would be the way I'd approach
Okay.
it.
All right. Okay. Learning something new. And so you said primary school was in Westham. Secondary school?
Secondary school, I went to Car Hill, which is your neighbour.
Yeah, just down the road from here.
And then then went to college in Preston.
Okay. Did you know that you were always going to get to a point where you were pastoring a church? Like, what was on the cards when you were younger? Did you have it all laid out?
I mean, for a long time, when it comes to, you know, career, I almost had things I was passionate about, and that could have really gone in any direction. I was always quite creative into, you know, music or, you know, video, film, all that sort of stuff. And that could have been an option. But I don't know, I think my desire to help people and to, I guess, just journey with people seemed to really lead down this path. And being in the church from a very young age as well, Yeah, it was always just something I was always drawn. Had a sense it was like, this is a really important thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it almost felt like you could do many things. When you're growing up, you think about all the potential and the possibilities, and it to me just felt like an honor or a privilege to be able to help people.
Yeah.
Through difficult times, or help people grow and that sort of thing.
So, what were you doing at college in terms of subjects that you were taking, and was it a step from finishing college to then having a job role within the church? Yeah, how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah. So I actually studied music in college. I did 2 music modules or classes and a business class. They were again two things I was really interested in, and then left college and got a job in a local like finance accountancy company in Lytham.
Yeah.
And I was doing their marketing and design and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like all the creative type things.
Yeah.
And then from there I went to university, studied theology, and then got this role at the end of my university. But I'd been working for the church part-time maybe for a couple of years before that.
A couple of years, all right. What instrument were you playing, or did you play an instrument?
Yeah, I mean, I started off when I was, 5, 6 years old playing the trumpet.
Okay.
I like jazz trumpet, and then I drummed and played guitar and various different things over the years. Yeah.
So you could be your own band just by yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you still play a little bit?
A little bit, but not as much anymore. Yeah.
Okay. So how old were you when you then stepped into leading the church?
So I was 23 years old when I was appointed to the
quite
church.
young.
It was, yeah. At the time, it felt young for sure. A lot of people would say to me, "You don't look like a vicar. You don't look like a pastor."
Yeah.
To which I understood what people meant, but I always think, what does a pastor look like?
Yeah.
What does a vicar look like? People would have what they would imagine in their mind.
Yeah.
But granted, it did feel young at the time, but they went through the governance and the due diligence and all of that process that you would go through to appoint a pastor, and just a general sense that it was the right thing to do. So.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, when someone says, vicar or a pastor, probably, think about somebody who's got gray hairs, much older, definitely not playing an instrument, not doing things like marketing and, working a marketing job. So, people have, their own ideas about what a pastor or vicar might be or do. What would you say someone in your role does? What's the role?
Good question. A lot of people do ask that, though. Yeah, I think the obvious answer is a pastor is the person who leads a church, but the actual on the ground of what that looks like is it can range. It's a very diverse job.
Yeah.
And usually you're kind of, maybe your strengths lie in some areas and you're drawn to some areas of it, but ultimately it can range from, meeting people in the hospital or meeting people in, their homes who've been sick or, injured or whatever it might be, to, the governance side of things where you've got budgets and you've got, like safeguarding, and you've got all these things that are really important for the, the daily running of the church. It can, meeting volunteers, meeting various leaders in the church. Yeah. Sometimes it means representing the church to the local community in, like the remembrance days. And I guess it can really range depending on the time of year it is. But my biggest responsibility is to empower people. Obviously, we're Christians, so we teach the Bible. It'd be a big part of what I do as a pastor, I study and teach the Bible.
Okay.
Help people understand that in a way that's relevant to them. Maybe changing some perceptions around what that means for people, because not everyone is a person of faith and comes with their own view of what the Bible or what Christianity has to offer. So I see it as one of my responsibilities is to help guide people through that. So.
All right. So in terms of what you're doing, it looks like it's very much connected with the local community, and people might not realize that. So what year was it that you started as the lead pastor?
So I stepped in 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2019's just the year
It
before
was, you know, you
the pandemic. So,
exactly.
okay, what month in 2019?
Well, I got appointed in the May,
Yeah,
but I started in the September.
September. Okay.
So you start this new opportunity with, wide eyes, and this is what the future could look like.
Yeah.
And then within 6 months,
Yeah.
the world changed.
So you're introduced to the church as the lead pastor.
Yep.
You got a few months, literally,
Yeah.
and then nobody's allowed to meet in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you saw, what you experienced, because it was a hard time for a lot of people, especially in the area of Kirkham, the Fylde.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about what that was like, and what was your experience, what were you getting involved with, what was happening?
Yeah, I mean, what I found really unique about it was one of those experiences that everyone was going through at the same time. Whether you were, affluent, or whether you were, in hard times, or whether you had lived here all your life, or you're new, no matter what sort of slice of society that you were in, everyone experienced this at the same time. And obviously in different ways, but it was almost this shared event that everyone went through. So it was quite a unique time. So for us as a church, one of our main things is to gather, the gathered church on a Sunday morning. And during the pandemic, it was, you weren't able to gather for, various reasons. So, we made the decision to move online. So really, you say that we're quite connected to the community. Really, a church is a group of people, that have a common belief system, obviously within the Christian faith, a common vision, a common understanding, and we're connected to churches all around the country. But we decided for us, because it is for people, we wanted to still engage people in a way that was meaningful, that met people where they were at. And ultimately, as I said, it was a time where everyone was going through the same thing. So everyone was separated from family and friends, and there was a lot of fear around the future. All of a sudden, media consumption spikes in a crazy way, and people are starting to almost spiral in ways that they hadn't done before. So we saw it as a bit of a duty, really, to say, well, if our organization is people, well, how can we best serve the people we've got? How can we best serve this local area? So the few things that we really did were, we moved online. So all of our gatherings were, like pre-recorded, and we set up a little studio, and we tried to serve our church community with, content and gatherings that were online. But then in a local sense, we just noticed some real big needs in the area. So, people were struggling to do their shopping. If you remember, the terminology around that time was shielding. So if you're over a certain age, or if if you had a weakened immune system, or various different things, you're encouraged to shield. In other words, to stay in. So we saw that as a way that we could really, help the local area in a time that was really difficult. So we put a team together of volunteers. One of the benefits of being a church is we had some amazing systems to manage volunteers, and to manage finances, and to manage, DBS checks and that sort of thing. So we gathered this big team. There was 40 or 50 volunteers from the local area, some from the church, some from the local community, which was beautiful. And we got these yellow t-shirts, and it was like the local community recognized that, these yellow t-shirts, and we began to shop for people. So we would, we would take people's orders and drop their shopping off at the house. We'd drop prescriptions off at their house. We'd, really anything that would, serve the people that weren't able to get out. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was, we had this amazing team of people that were shielding themselves, because we've got a diverse range of ages from, 0 through to the 90s in our church. So the ones who had to shield themselves said, well, we want to help too. So they set up this call, almost like a call center, that people could sign up if they were lonely and isolated, and our team would call them. And I think when we worked it out, it was, it was like, the team was quite big, but we spent over 1,000 hours on the phone with people, just chatting, and there's loads of people involved in it, and it was a really beautiful time.
Wow. So, that's big, because you're right. A lot of one of the main issues that people did face was separation and loneliness
Yeah.
when everything was shut down. Did you have a lot of people that you know, really got back to you guys to say how it really helped them through that time period? And
Yeah, definitely. We had relatives that would call us. One comes to mind. It was a guy from, I think he lived in Oxford, who called us, and he was just saying, "I'm so grateful." At a time when my elderly parents were in need. He said the feeling of not being able to get there was heartbreaking, but it was so nice to hear that this local church had helped them out, and so it was a really special time, really, and that's our view of what the church is as well. It is there to serve, and I think that was really demonstrated in that time. So.
How did you join up with other groups in the area? Like, did you just have a network of groups that you knew already? How did that materialize? Because it's a big
question.
undertaking to set up what you did.
So we partner with the councils. So Fylde Council were really helpful. We became really close in that time. They would send referrals through. So if someone called the council for help and they were within our area, they would get referred to our team. So our number was on, within their sort of team process. Yeah, we partnered with, various other churches as well. If, if people needed help, we were able to pass them that way, or because I think communities work best when people work together. And I think, it was, again, we had the systems in place and the team on the ground, and we had a lot of young adults at the time who were off school and off college and whatever. So, we were able to really offer the councils something of, of a team that were willing and up for getting involved. So.
All right. How would you describe your church community? What words would you use to describe them, and why?
I would say our church community has a real special sense of home. It feels like people walk in the doors who have never been to church before. They might have preconceived ideas of what that looks like or what it feels like. And I think our community has this real special ability to make people feel welcome. And kind of, brought in a sense. I'd say we've got a really creative community. There's a high value on beauty, in the sense of, making things and doing them to the best of your ability. Anything we try and do as a church, we try and do the best that we can. Not in any sort of vain sense, but just because we believe that, we should be giving the best to whatever we do. So our community has this real nice sense of excellence and creativity and innovation. There's always a different way that you can look at things. They'd probably be two words that would come to mind: home and creativity.
And I wanted to ask, in terms of, you coming into this lead role, pandemic happens. How did you find that you were able to develop, yourself in the role? And was it a lot of just learning on the go? How did that go for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think I probably had the benefit of not being in the role too long. I imagine for some people who'd been in roles for a long time, business leaders, people in positions of responsibility, you almost would have had to have cracked out of your thinking. Whereas for me, it was all quite fluid anyway, because it was new. We were looking at the future in a new way. So I think that was a benefit. But lots of learning on the go. It almost felt like the best way to sort of articulate it would be, you kind of had to rip up the roadmap of what you had before. And from my own perception, people that were slow to rip up the roadmap were the ones that maybe took a little longer to get used to the fact that the world had changed. And I think for us, we decided early on, firstly, the world's not the same. And then the big realization was it's not going back to how it was either. Now, elements of it will, of course. I don't want to sound like apocalyptic in some sense, but recognizing that, okay, the world is changing. The way people work is changing. for good and for bad. There was some real challenges that we faced and that everyone faced, the whole isolation and separation. And some good things that came out of it, in the fact that some businesses were able to make themselves more efficient with hybrid working, and that was great for some parents and for people that needed the flexibility. But then some of the difficulties of that as well, of people feeling more disconnected because they're no longer in the office anymore, or so it's been something that I think we just had to rip up the roadmap and say, right, well, how can we look at the future in a way that feels authentic to us and that feels like it meets the needs however they need to be met, rather than, well, this is how we've always done it, so I guess this is what we got to do.
You did mention, one of the main issues that you've realized from talking to people or talking with people is, the whole thing of loneliness. Are there any other things that you've seen within the community, that people could be helped with, or are there places you could signpost people to if, let's say, they're new to the area, or they've always been in the area, but they want to really start to connect with other people in the community?
Yeah, I think really that being the issue that I think a lot of people perceived is the fact that there was a lot of disconnect. One of the things I've always appreciated about this area is the fact that they do show up and support. I'm always astounded whenever we are involved in the Remembrance Sunday. You see the streets are usually lined with people as the various sort of local entities, whether it be Scouts or the Boys Brigade or the schools or the mayor and the various different sort of organisations all join together, all the churches, and walk through the town, right up to the cenotaph. You see the streets are lined with people, and there's quite a nice sense of that. The community do come out for things. They do, they want to get behind things. So I think that's something. Even we saw that after the COVID era as well, as people seemed really up for, right, how can we connect more? How can we get out more? And so there's been various things. I know there's like local workspaces where you see people, like a bit of a melting pot of community. Always helpful for when people feel quite isolated at home, find ways to connect with others. There's, various different, like business groups or things that, like business mentoring and stuff like that. And, like the club days that happen around the Fylde coast, usually in the summertime. Again, the community shows out for those things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and it seems to be almost like that value's almost been like reinvigorated after the time when people couldn't really be together. So it's been good to see.
What are you looking forward to, in the next few years, with your church and just in the area in general? What would you say you're looking forward to?
Well, I mean, we've got, if I touch on some stuff we've been looking at, we were in the process of, looking to build a facility. Our church has always met in various different venues, but we've, bought some land and we're looking at building. And the heart behind that really was to create space for us to build community and for us to host. I'd love to see this as a building where, the community feel like they're a part of as well. And I'd love it to be a space where local schools could, do their end of year assemblies and, something that brings people together. Places that people know they can find help and find hope. That's something we're really passionate about. We're also, like I said, we're really big on the arts and creativity. And maybe this is just my perception, but something that seems to be quite typical of rural Northern England is that people feel this sense that you need to be in the big cities if you ever want to be involved in anything creative or artistic. Almost like, oh yeah, I wanted to do this, but whatever it might be, I want to be an actor, I want to be I want to be a musician, or I want to whatever. I need to go and be in the cities. And to a point, the cities are convenient because that's where a lot of connection happens. But something we're really passionate about is how can we help introduce kids and young people into spaces that can champion the creativity inside them and
Yeah.
help them see actually that there's a space for their gifts and talents and abilities to be used and to be encouraged.
Yeah.
So I almost want to lift the eyes or help lift the eyes, be part of the solution, to allowing young people to, to have really big ambition and to shoot for things that are really significant, where unfortunately, typically, it isn't hugely celebrated in areas like this. That's something we're really passionate about. And then for the wider community, I think it's been amazing to see the investment in the local area with the Heritage Fund and with the redevelopment of the Market Square and the High Street. And I'd love to see over the coming years just more businesses come into the area. There's a lot of empty shops, and it'd be great to see those filled with local people, whether that be restaurants or businesses or community initiatives or whatever it might be. It'd be great to see that sort of that same buzz on the high street as those little moments throughout the year, like the club days and that sort of thing. It'd be great to see the community alive in that way. And I think that's something that they're working towards. So hopefully that'll be something we see.
No, it sounds really exciting, especially you saying that you've got a plot of land that you're going to be working on and seeing how that can become a new hub for a lot of different things to be happening. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Kirkham, is that church town? Is that how it translates?
Yeah, I think or church home.
Church
back
home.
in the day, the whatever it was, the Anglo something.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's fitting that a big part of Kirkham is the church being really active in doing things within the community. One thing I'm going to be asking all the guests is, it's a Lancashire Smiles podcast. What makes Dan smile?
Good question. I mean, aside from the usual, some good coffee or some good food.
Are you one of those that mixes their own coffee? You got is it the seeds, the granules? I'm not much. I don't really drink coffee like
seeds,
that.
Yeah. I am. I do appreciate some good coffee. Yeah.
Do you go somewhere for your coffee or do you make it yourself?
I mean, are we allowed to shout out some good coffee?
Yeah.
I mean, my go-to coffee would be if I'm in Preston, it would be Jonah's Coffee.
Jonah's Coffee. Okay.
Yeah. If I'm in Blackpool, it'd probably be Last Light Coffee. They'd be the ones if you want to go each way. Yeah. Yeah. What else makes me smile? A good film.
Good film.
Yeah,
okay.
good film.
What are some top films that you'd recommend?
I've got a couple. I feel like it depends what sort of genre you're looking at, but some good films I've watched recently. I watched Braveheart recently.
Braveheart, okay.
That's a pretty top film, yeah.
Do they do like a remake or is this?
No, I don't think so. I think Mel Gibson's.
Okay.
I think it was in the 90s,
original.
95.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any other ones? So Braveheart.
Braveheart. What have I seen recently?
So everyone's expecting you to say Passion of the Christ.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen it yet. Yeah. It's on the list. I remember people saying it's just such an intense film and you've got to, prepare yourself to watch it. Yeah. The Dunes that came out the last couple of years, they've been great.
Yeah.
But I love a good film.
All right.
Some great films come out.
So it's coffee and a good film.
Good film, yeah. I'll take that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to everything that you're going to be doing with the church community as well.
Thanks for having us, and really just as a local person who cares about this area, thanks for being here. And also a lot of people in your position could have gone halves, done half a job.
Yeah.
So I appreciated being here and seeing just the level of excellence that you've put in. I think it says a lot to a local area that you don't just care about your craft and what you do, but you care about the environment that people sit in and doing it well. And I think it's, I just want to champion that in you and really thank you for not looking bad on the street. But no, I'm excited for all that will come from this place. So huge honor to be on a podcast and have a conversation. So.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And that's all for today. Thank you.